This is the Detroit Sports Podcast Network.
The biggest icon in podcasting.
Welcome in, everybody, to this week's edition of Doc and Jock. I am the Doc, John Macaroon. If you can hear the pep in my step, it's March. The nice weather is upon us. Thank goodness, man. Look, I'll even shill for 50-degree weather. Getting outside, seeing the sun. I know we talked about it before, but because we're talking about the week of my birthday, we're talking about weather in the 60s. And if you're getting into weather like an old person will, you're starting to hear potentially that this might be a really warm spring, and that just really sounds good to me right now, man. I'm looking forward to talking to you about all things Detroit Lions, looking forward to talking about the game tonight, the big game, Michigan State, hoping that it's a competitive one, because if Michigan State plays well and if both teams play really well, it has the makings and the hallmark of a really good game, but it's going to be tough because Michigan State has played so many games in such a short period of time. Tomizzo has hinted at it, that he's concerned that will his players have enough legs to keep up with Michigan, because I think right from the jump, after a bad loss, I think Michigan's going to come in and looking to start running. So it's going to be a fun broadcast. Hope everything's going good with you, my friend.
Yeah, man. I mean, this game, this first one at least, it feels like everything's on the table for U of M. I don't know if you want to start the show off here or not, but I mean, this is a huge game. This is massive. Michigan has a chance to win a Big Ten championship here, Big Ten title in college basketball, and it could all come down to tonight. Now, they will get another shot at retribution if they do falter to Michigan State, but I mean, this is huge. This is like we used to joke back in the day about closing the gap, right? CTG, closing the gap, where Michigan was getting closer as a basketball school to catching up to Michigan State. And look, the gap is I don't want to say it's as wide as ever, because I just think Michigan is heads and tails above Michigan State right now. But it's a different shoe to be wearing. I mean, we usually joke around about the football programs and kind of where Michigan State are at. And at this point, if you're a Michigan fan, you're utterly disappointed in the football program. But if you're a Michigan basketball fan, you have to be feeling really, really good right now. And yeah, it's a bit of a disappointing loss to Illinois, but I think Michigan comes into this game and I think they're ready to go. While Michigan State, it's got to feel like desperation for you guys, right? Like if you're a Michigan State fan, you're desperate. You need to win these games. And you've played a ton of games, a ton of what feels like back-to-back games, just because of everything that happened with the program getting shut down for so many weeks. But I mean, it's to me, it's just you're at two different places with both of these schools right now, and it's all on the line for this game. So it's really interesting the way the schedule ends up working out, where you've got Michigan and Michigan State playing in back-to-back games. It's basically for a Big Ten championship for Michigan. For Michigan State, it's for a chance to go play in the NCAA tournament. So there's a whole lot on the table here with both of these games to wind down the Big Ten season, and I think it's really, really interesting.
Yeah, you and I also love to talk about gaping holes, and Michigan State has a big one.
I love gaping holes.
There's a big one at point guard, and I'm really shocked that Michigan State has to resort to potentially Josh Langford at the position. They're talking about it. Obviously, the veteran leader there, the guy that's been through so much. It's just really, really interesting, because if both teams play well, it has the hallmarks of a really good game, because Michigan State has the ability to clamp down on defense. And obviously, with the way in which Illinois played, you got a little bit of a blueprint about what to do. Michigan's guard play against Illinois, one of the top teams in the Big Ten, was really surprising in that they didn't do a whole heck of a lot with Wagner and Smith. And I think that the good thing is that Michigan fans are really excited and they're happy. I put a tweet out on our Twitter page at Detroit Podcast. I just said, hey, what was your reaction to Michigan's loss? And a lot of people had some really solid reactions. I mean, Isaiah Sanders messaged and he said, we need more out of their guards. Wagner is a first-round pick that only scored 2 points in the game. Smith is second in the Big Ten in assists per game, and he had 0. Them two set up a lot of their offense on a nightly basis, and they both were bad. And most of the reactions were, look, it's a good thing. It's a thing in which it's a bad game. It happens. It looks like they weren't as focused. It looks like, they had a bad night, a bad game. And so everybody that's kind of weighed in isn't overly concerned. But I think that, Illinois did kind of expose some things that I think opportunistic coaches and scouts can really pay attention to.
Do you think it's more just a case of maybe some tired legs? I mean, both these programs had to undergo shutdowns in the middle of the season, which really kind of crunched that schedule. And the back end of this schedule has been brutal for both these schools. And I think at this point, what you kind of got with that Michigan-Illinois game, and Illinois is a good team. Let's not get it twisted here. And look, taking away some of the guard play from Michigan obviously hurts them. But I think maybe it's just more of a case of some tired legs. I think they came in, they looked a little bit flat. They didn't do a whole lot offensively. The guards didn't contribute. And when the guards aren't contributing, the offense is going to kind of stutter and it's going to stall out. And I think that's what you have here. I think if you're Juwan Howard, you take this game, you just roll with the punches, right? All right, yeah, it sucked. We lost. Second loss of the year. This was a bit of a big game because Illinois, again, a very good school, very good program, and you end up losing to them this year. That kind of sucks. But I think you just roll with the punches. I think you give the guys a day off. I think you come back, you look at some film, you run through a couple things in practice, and then you go out there with a little bit more fresh legs and take on MSU. And look, MSU is going to come into this game, and I think MSU is going to feel okay. So you need to really kind of step it up, and you need to be prepared. So I think giving the guys a day off and then bringing them back and let them stick their teeth into the rival, I think it might do them some good. I mean, what does Michigan State have to do to Michigan? Is it take out the guards? Is it contain the guard play from a guy like Wagner? I mean, what does Michigan State have to do here? Because this game isn't just important for Michigan. Michigan State needs this win too.
Yeah, they need to rebound. They need to really maximize second chance opportunities. They got to play well in transition. And here's the thing. The offense runs well when obviously they're making shots. And when Aaron Henry, Rocket Watts, Gabe Brown, when the offense is balanced and somebody is, really playing well and playing as a leader, I think Michigan State plays a lot better. Here's the issue with Michigan State. They're basically a team of role players. And a team of role players has to do everything right. Whereas Michigan, you look at it, they got a 7'1" freak at center that can take over the game and really dominate. I mean, if Michigan's smart, they're just going to pound Michigan State, pound the ball inside, time in, time out, and see what Michigan State does. Do they double? How do they address that situation? For Michigan State, they got to play basically a perfect game. So this first one, I think for Michigan State, it's interesting in that they did play really well, played well on defense in those games against the top 5 teams. They were able to rebound. They were able to limit second chance opportunities, and they stopped the turnovers. They still are elevated, still a little bit high, more than I would like. But when you look at Michigan State, their role players are just good enough if they can potentially feed Aaron Henry the ball. I think Aaron Henry, if the Michigan State is going to win one of the games, I think the opportunity is going to be not on Thursday. I think it's going to be just vastly challenging with Michigan State and Michigan both having played. I think that Michigan just has a little bit more when you're tired. You know what I mean? You got just a little bit more talent, more shooters. Mm-hmm. They got better three-point shooters, and Michigan's playing more of a style that has been conducive for teams in college to win. Great inside presence, and then you kick it out to multiple people that can shoot and play well and make threes. But if you can stop it, if you can use the Illinois blueprint and force Michigan to take a bunch of bad shots that they miss, then Michigan State will be in it. But I just got a feeling it'll be a good first half, and then early in the first 6 minutes of the second half, I think Michigan will start to pull away because they'll have the opportunity to make shots. And when they get on that run, if they lead by 8 or more, Michigan State's going to have a nightmare of a time trying to come back because they just don't have the sheer depth of offensive scoring to be able to compete with the talent of Juwan Howard. So that first game is a learning game. And for Michigan, I think they do want to rebound well. They want to prove that it was just a fluke. They want to really secure the title, and they got something to play for. So for Michigan State on Thursday, I think it's going to potentially be a tough one to walk away from. But then it sets up for what you have to have happen in the weekend. You got to learn from it. You got to put together your game plan, and you got to have the championship performance on Sunday. Because I think for Michigan State, they've played well. They've got some signature wins. They've got a resume that I think with a victory over Michigan and one victory in the Big Ten tournament, I think that's enough to secure them to have an opportunity to continue the streak, I believe, for 23 seasons. It's an amazing run that really, because to be honest, the last time they didn't make it was a year prior to me entering Michigan State. They've made it that many times, I believe, since 96. You know, after 96, when they failed to make it, I believe, they've been in the tournament each and every year. And it's crazy to believe, to think that since the 90s, the staple of college basketball has been Michigan State with the ability to get to the Final Four, one championship, one final appearance, and it's just an amazing run. And I just think that for Michigan State, they do get a lot of benefit of the doubt, and they have. I just can't believe Michigan State went to this year without one solid point guard that can really take over the team. That's all they needed. If Foster Loyer wasn't hurt and wasn't just, basically relegated as a coach, you just needed those extra 15 points from a reliable scorer. You had the makings. You beat Duke, but obviously it's not the same team. But it's just crazy that they peaked like within 5 games of the season. And you do have to, and I'll say this before I'll ask you about Michigan, you have to factor in that it's not all coaching and talent. This team has been riddled with COVID. It wasn't like Michigan where they had a 3-week vacation and nobody really had it. Several members of the roster had the virus. And you can't just say, okay, we're going to take 3 weeks off, have a major medical condition, and then come back and fire it up and play elite Big Ten basketball. It took them a while. They struggled. They were dealing with fatigue. They didn't play their best. I've had the opportunity to watch each and every game, and I've loved to see it. And Tomizzo has said that, he kind of backed off, scheduled practices in a different way. Now that things are ramping up, he has the ability to really put the hallmarks of what he wanted to do back then. So COVID really ravaged Michigan State. So if Michigan puts a hurting on Michigan State, it's not like Juwan's arrived and things like that. It's good to, and Tomizzo said it point blank, it's no fun if the rivalry is one-sided, and it's been that way for quite a while. Remember, just last season, Michigan State had some fun with Michigan. So it maybe some will even say the reason why John Beilein fled is that he recognized a couple years ago that
Okay. Just
I can't do it. I can't do it. I got whooped.
Out, okay?
I got whooped 3 times in a row. I think he recognized that. Hey, my guys are leaving. I can't keep restocking.
You know what's messed up? You're gonna go and you're gonna spread all these rumors. You're gonna talk all this trash. And I was just about to compliment Tomizzo on how great of a job he's done. This might be his best coaching job he's done. And you're gonna go and you're gonna soil it with this mess. Come on. Just stop. But let's talk about Izzo for a quick second, all right? Like I was going to say, and like I was trying to get around to saying, this might be his best coaching job that he's ever done. To take this team that has been ravaged by COVID, take this team that basically everybody through the middle of the season doubted, and to get them to this point where they're basically playing for their NCAA lives is pretty remarkable. At a certain point in the season, everybody said that this team was dead. And we've seen this time and time again with Tomizzo teams. It'll look like they'll go through this stretch. And yeah, this stretch was longer than most, where it doesn't seem like they can get up off the ground. Like they can't get up off the mat. They're not going to answer the bell. There's a 10 count going on, and the referee is somewhere near 8, maybe 9. And then all of a sudden, there's like this spark, and this team just comes alive, and they turn it on at the end of the season. I think this team will get into the NCAA tournament. I don't care if this team loses both games to Michigan. I think somehow, some way, this team will get in, whether it's by name recognition alone, maybe they win a game or 2 in the Big Ten tournament. Somehow, some way, this team will find its way into March Madness, and they will be there, whether they are a 16 seed, I believe they will be, or whether they're a 14 seed, which I think is probably more likely. I don't think John Beilein left because he was afraid of Tom Izzo. I don't think that was it, or just the pressure of going up against big green and big white. No, I don't think that was the deal. I don't think that had anything to do with it. I think that guy wanted to try something different. I think he wanted to go to the NBA. I think he feels like he did what he could do here at Michigan, and it was time to move on, and that's what it was. Moved on. Juwan Howard came in, and look, I'm not going to sugarcoat it. I wasn't sure what you were getting with Juwan Howard. I thought Juwan Howard had a good chance to do some really good things here. Back in the day, I wrote a nice little article about it when he was hired for DFN. And to say I'm surprised at what you're getting out of Juwan Howard, it would be 100% accurate. Like, it blows me away that this team is where they're at right now. But I think there was a good blueprint laid down by John Beilein. I think Juwan Howard comes in and basically puts his mark on it. And I think what you got here is you got a guy who really relates to the players and relates to the students. And, he gets the most out of them. It's been an evolution of this basketball program for the last couple years now. And it's a team that can play 3-and-D, and that's what you need in college basketball. So look, who is this going to be a split? Is it going to be a 1-and-1? Michigan's going to win one. Michigan State's going to win one.
It's going to be really close. I think the odds-on favorite is that Michigan's going to take down both. But I think the split will happen with each team winning at home, if it does indeed take place.
I think Michigan wins both, but I think that second game is going to be incredibly close. I think Michigan runs away with I don't want to say runs away with it. I think Michigan wins the first one by 7. I think the second one is going to be much more nip and tuck. That'll be a big primetime game. It's going to be on CBS. That'll be one of those afternoon games where I think it's going to draw a ton of viewers. A ton of people are going to watch, similar to what happened with that Ohio State game. And I think you're going to get a really, really good game out of Michigan. I think you're going to get the best that Michigan State can muster in that game.
I can't wait to see it, man. Oh, man, here we go. First game tonight. I think you and I both are penciling in Michigan to take it down. But we shall see. All right, before we talk about the Detroit Lions, I want to thank everybody for supporting the Detroit Sports Podcast Network. The way in which you can find our daily content is by visiting DetroitSportsPodcast.com. It's where you can find everything related to the podcast, anywhere that you subscribe as well. Anywhere that you listen to your favorite podcast, you can subscribe and hit and search Detroit Sports Podcast, and our content will find you. We broadcast basically from Tuesday to Saturday, some podcasts on Sunday, and we cover everything, a wide-ranging sports podcast network dedicated to all things Detroit sports. And we thank you so much for following along since 2013. And what Adam and I have been able to create has been great. And we spread this thing, and we're just keep going with it each and every day because we're approaching episode 400 of these bad boys consecutively. And I think that's what I'm most proud of. Not the number 400, not what we've achieved, not all the guests that have come in, not all the hijinks and hilarity. But the fact is, we started a show and we said the number one goal we wanted was, if it's a day we're going to release a podcast, it's going to come out. And each and every Thursday for the last 8 years, a podcast has come out with DocNJock on it, and I take pride in it, and I think you as well. And it's an amazing feat thanks to you guys. And we don't need to have kumbaya moments. DocNJock collab very well. We're not like the Detroit Lions who are trying to figure. We're not trying to figure out, all right, there's 9 new people here. Let's kumbaya, baby. Let's figure out how to deal with this. It makes sense, basically. What is crazy to really think about, cuz, and we'll veer to this for 1 second, and we keep joking around about it, but it was so bad with Quintricia that it sounds like they couldn't even probably decide properly on a player. Like, I bet you the decision, and this is pure speculation, no inside knowledge, but I bet you that there was a significant amount of infighting in regards to that number 3 pick. I think that Jeff Okuda pick split the Quintricia regime probably right in half, where half the scouts were like, take him, he's going to develop. And the other half were like, are you guys crazy? If you take him, we're definitely going to get fired. We are not going to win in a win-now mode. And half of the people that did not support it were right, because that pick, so polarizing, so challenging, and he did not perform. He basically got Quintricia fired. And I think that they could not deal with anything in terms of making decisions. I think a fracture happened over Bob Quinn's tenure, and Matt Patricia caught part of it, and he was part of the problem on the field. And now what we're hearing day after day, which for me, not really vibing with, but I can get it. It's like, Here's the talk coming out of Allen Park. We love each other. We like Brad Holmes is like, I can't believe that I'm working with this guy, Dan Campbell. I can't believe it. It's like, he's got my brain. And what I think, Dan thinks. And what Dan thinks, I think. And when we walk out the door, we go, we want a tight end. Yes, we think the same thing. And when we go, not that quarterback. And it's like, come on, guys. You're trying to, who are you really trying to force feed? This is Detroit. There are fans like that are going to eat that shit up. But most fans in Detroit are not really wanting to hear this on a regular basis. How much you love Sheila Ford Hemp, how much you love working together, how much this is a family. Just really keep it to which players you're going to get, how are you going to get them, and how are you going to make Jared Goff somewhat serviceable. If you can stick to that and kind of navigate away from this daily nonsense of, hey, we're trying to get along and hang out with Sheila and drink tea and tell everybody how much we love them and have great leadership meetings. We're not into that. We're not into culture clubs or culture this or culture that. I just want to know why you think Tyrell Williams was an affordable option and why you think Marvin Jones doesn't want to be here anymore. That's all I want to know. Stick to that, and the rest of it is just entertainment and PR. But with the Lions, cuz that shit that's coming out is quite thick in regards to we got to fix this culture.
Yeah, at this point, it kind of feels like it's almost being forced down our throats, doesn't it?
Whew.
It doesn't seem like it's. Look, this is what I'll say. I think with Bob Quinn, Matt Patricia, I think that was for those guys being friends, right? And for Matt Patricia being Bob Quinn's number one guy. It seemed like once those two got in the room, there were chairs and tables getting broken as they argued and debated about everything. And it seems like those guys really stalled out the process because they just couldn't get on the same page. Whereas what you got going on with Holmes and what you got going on with Campbell, look, I don't know if it's so rah, or it's so kumbaya. It just, at this point, it kind of feels like, look, it's different. This is going to be different. And whether it's just because they're constantly telling you it's different, which is kind of annoying at this point, or it's actually going to be different, it seems like it's a different voice in the room. It seems like they're going to talk and they're going to collaborate and they're going to work together to help make this better. Whereas you had guys completely going rogue with Bob Quinn and Matt Patricia. And you're right. The Jeff Okudah pick might have been the nail in the coffin for those guys, which I should probably be praising that pick because by the time it got around to the Jeff Okudah pick, I was pissed at both these guys and I wanted them broomed out of here. And I didn't think they were going to get broomed out of here. But it seems like, honestly, looking at what you have, and I think this week alone is a prime example where you have Brad Holmes and where you had Bob Quinn. When talking about quarterbacks, you're holding the 7th draft pick. You're not holding the 3rd draft pick. You're holding the 3rd draft pick. I think it's pretty obviously you have to take a quarterback, or you've got to figure out to get the guy that you feel is going to be the best quarterback for this franchise. When you were holding the 3rd draft pick, you had Bob Quinn basically come out and said, yeah, we're not taking a quarterback. We love Jeff Okudah. And I think that really hurt your positioning and your ability to either A, move back or possibly work a trade with a team like Miami. And you didn't do enough to maximize that value at 3. Whereas this year, you've got Brad Holmes coming out and being like, yeah, there's a lot of quarterbacks and they're different flavors and there's guys that are going to do different things. And depending on what you value, there's a guy there for you. And yeah, I think at 7, you have to look at quarterback, which comes out and lets everybody else in the league know, hey, if our guy's there, we're taking him. You don't know who our guy is. And honestly, we might not know who our guy is. But if our guy's there, yeah, we're going to take him. And do I believe for a minute that they're probably going to take a quarterback at 7? No, I don't. But what he's doing is he's doing what good GMs do. He's protecting his asset, which is that draft pick at 7. And I think if you're a Lions fan, you've got to love that. And when you've got a guy like Dan Campbell going on Pat McAfee's show and talking about different things and why it might be different, when he says it's going to be Sheila Ford Hamp, do I roll my eyes? You better believe I roll my eyes. I roll my eyes so damn hard it slaps my brain. But okay, cool. I'm willing to give it a shot because what's coming out of Allen Park now is so different than what we got before. And you as a guy who gets to cover this team, like, because I got to cover them with Matt Patricia and Bob Quinn, and it sucked. And I think you covering them, you got to cover them with Matt Patricia and Bob Quinn, and you would agree it sucked. This has to be better. This has to be more fun to write about. It has to be great to see a guy like Dan Campbell go on Pat McAfee's show and kind of cut it up with McAfee, who we both find to be completely entertaining from our time watching wrestling and following him in NXT. So you've got to agree that this organization and this regime is a complete 180 to what we had just a mere 3 years ago.
Yes, it's better. It's not boring. Absolutely. And the fact is that Dan Campbell brings some energy and there's some honesty. At the presser, they said, yeah, we're going to look to familiar places. And then boom, on Wednesday, it was announced that Tyrell Williams was signed. And if you did follow SI Alliance, there was an article on February 17th, which I recalled. I'm like, wait a minute, I wrote about him. I wrote an article, and it was like why the signing of Tyrell Williams makes sense. And the reason why it makes sense is because all the talk that has been coming out has been, we're going to go affordable, we're going to go familiar. And affordable familiar means places that obviously the offensive coach has been, which is the Chargers. Oh, wait a minute. He was at the Raiders, he got cut, and it was like, oh, let's put 2 and 2 together, and bada boop, bada beep, it's Tyrell Williams. And he got himself a $6.2 million deal, and that's what we're looking for. It's like, it's not rocket science here. Everybody knows it. But what Matt Patricia would do would be like, okay, everyone would put the puzzle pieces together, and then he'd just start talking and rambling and, not make any sense, and then he wouldn't tell you anything, and then it would end up doing what everybody already knew. So it's refreshing when Brad Holmes and Dan Campbell say, yeah, we're going to be affordable, and we're going to be familiar, and then boom, you can put pieces together, you can tangibly sound smart, put together content, and boom, it happens. Now, is it a great signing? No. Is it a downgrade? Yeah. Is it a cheap 1-year deal for a mid-range wide receiver? That's what they're doing. So I have no problem with it. It's a C+ signing, and I think it's fine. And in regards to Dan Campbell and Brad Holmes, look, does it really take all that much to get along? I mean, they figured it out. It's like, what does our boss want? And what are they like? Sheila's into collaboration. Brad Holmes, we're collaborating every day. We wake up and we text each other. How are we going to collab today? And then Dan Campbell's like, collabing with Brad Holmes is the best thing I've ever done in my life. Collab. Having Sheila there is such a collaborative effort.
You're way more pessimistic about this than me.
It's
much more.
No, because you know why? I think you get it. I'm more of the belief that, yes, it needs to be collaborative, but this is football. This is not like a regular business. You kind of need someone to kind of take the lead and to be like, hey, do this. And, I get the collaborative nature of having these discussions, but I just need the leader to kind of stand up a little bit more and to say, hey, the decision's with Brad Holmes, the decision's with him, and say it publicly and own it and things like that. But I just don't need the daily talk about collaboration and the owner's involvement, because what it basically is doing is just saying that, hey, before, I'm not taking it as, oh my gosh, this is great, this is going to be revolutionary. That's really what you're supposed to be doing. It just signals that it was so bad that you were running your franchise in an inept way with the former owner. So basically what they're coming out, and what bothers me is, bro, it's 2021. You guys are coming out here and basically going, guess what, guys? We actually run a football team. Clap for us. We actually come to work and talk to each other and talk about people that are going to be on our roster, and we agree. It's like, you probably should have been doing this in 2015 and 2014. We kind of need to kind of move along from this. I kind of want to know about advanced metrics, and I want to know about what your fourth down strategy is going to be, how you're going to get Jared Goff into the next realm of his career. I don't want to know about your silly little basic plans of talking amongst each other like grown-ups. It's the overemphasis on the basics, It's like, cuz, guess what? We did great. We got the lights on and we got the microphones on again for the 450th time consecutively. Isn't it great? It's like, no, dude, we want to learn how to, get to the next step of doing video, live stream, stuff like that. It's like, we're not talking about the basics here. That's what they're talking about. But, and really, truly, to be honest, it's really fun because there's no expectation. It's all fun. It's all like basic, it's a free year. And it's nice. I think it's a refresh for the media, for everybody involved. You're not going to get too many people that are going to be nasty in 2021 about the Lions. It's just about who's getting broomed out, who's coming in, how are they going to utilize the draft and really dig in? So 2021 is a year of positivity. It's a year of hope. It's a free pass year, and everybody likes it. And Dan Campbell is the perfect spokesperson, and he's not boring, and he speaks the truth. He's funny. He's got a way about him, and he answers candidly. I mean, I asked him point blank. My question to him, because quickly the GM questions lit up quickly, and they only let in 4 or 5. And there was a point, too, if you paid attention to if you go listen to it, I want you to re-listen to the Pat McAfee interview with Dan Campbell, because Pat McAfee's so ADHD, he's starting to reveal the inside scoop of how the interview went down. But you have a situation with the Detroit Lions and Dan Campbell, and I asked him about, okay, what are your thoughts about the tight end and the evolution? You played tight end. It didn't seem like it was that heavily involved. And he was like, yeah, it's totally different now. It's a big skill position, and it's a position where, they're going to put their hand on the ground and block a couple times, but they really can be fast and lean and do these things. And he hinted, based on my insinuation, that, Kyle Pitts could be in play, that he's a big skill player, and that he would probably potentially have something that the Detroit Lions would find appealing. And that's all we're asking. Don't sugarcoat it. Don't come out here and be like what Matt Patricia would do. Well, every position's important on an offense, and every position is that. No, he answered my question to the question that I asked, and that's all you can ask for. In regards to Pat McAfee, he's so ADD and so just rambles and goes with his high energy. The Lions had to email him 2 or 3 times and basically warn him, please don't direct Dan Campbell into violating NFL rules. He said it. He's like, I got the email, because he asked twice. He said it twice. He said, I'm not going to ask you about, the quarterback, because I know I don't want to get in trouble here from the email. And it's so funny because I can picture that happening, where he gets the interview and then he asks, okay, what are the no-nos? And the Lions have to tell him, look, don't steer him into this, don't steer him into that, because they know that Dan Campbell could slip up. So that's fun. It was so funny to hear, because I was listening to every word, because with Dan Campbell, he's got so much energy, and he has the ability to make quotes that you definitely want to write about. But I was listening really closely to the interview, and Pat McAfee's all talking about the emails the Lions were sending him during the interview. It was great. It was awesome. It really was a top-down. And look, that's the other thing, too. TJ Hawkinson showing up on the Bussin' with the Boys podcast, Dan Campbell, Brad Holmes, they're talking. And that's all we could ask for in a COVID year, is that, hey, talk to the media, talk to us about football. And Brad Holmes, respectfully, he said, out of respect to the process, I'm not going to answer the question about Kenny Golladay, because it's common sense. Basically, here's the update. They've got an offer to him on the table, and they want it to be long-term, but they got to see how it's going to play out in regards to everything with the salary cap and everything. And if it doesn't work out, the likelihood is that I think he's going to get franchise tagged. So that when someone says we're not going to talk about it out of the process, what process? It's a negotiation. And they're trying to figure out what's the best number, how it's going to work out, and things like that. So I think that it was answered respectfully, but they gave so much other information. I got 6 articles out of it, and I could do 3 more if I wanted to. Mm-hmm. And I do want to credit the SI All Lions team, because what we were able to do in that first session was great. We had all the stories first. We had all the headlines first. And the reason why, it's because I do have other obligations. So I basically have to plan as fast as humanly possible, because I'm doing the podcast, I have a practice. But it's so good to see, boom, hey, Christian, this young college kid that's a talented writer that was recommended, boom, write this. Vito, boom, write this. Doc, write this. So right when the press conference was done, boom, we had content. Boom, within an hour, boom, 2 more stories. And then you start seeing the other situations in town, and it's 3-4 hours later, you're seeing all the same stuff. So I'm happy in that we grew as a platform to be able to put out content that is similar at the level at which beat writers are writing. And for that, I'm grateful that you guys read it, that you guys made SI pay attention to us, that you guys are forcing Detroit Sports Podcast. I mean, when I just throw out a comment about Michigan and 100 people respond to it, it's an honor. It really, like I said, being a small part of the Detroit sports media is awesome, because we're in the mix. We're not far off. We're not the outlier anymore. At first, I always felt like, okay, we're the outlier. We're the dot. We're the blip on the radar on the outside of what's going on. Now, I'm right there in the middle, and I'm flailing left and right, going, "Hey, look at me, look at me!" And it's the greatest opportunity to do it. And that's why I love doing it and recording podcasts and breaking things down, because the things that we're talking about are the things that everyone else is talking about. When everyone heard that, Brad Holmes likes the quarterbacks. Oh my gosh, is he going to take one? And that's what we're talking about. And I just, for that, it's a smokescreen, right? They're not going to take a quarterback. There's no way. I think they're going to push it to the last second to see if Washington, the 49ers, or Pittsburgh, or New England, they can't take a quarterback because they need a player. This is not the year for that. You got Jared Goff. Do you really think I put the percentage chance that the Lions take a quarterback this year with the number 7 pick, 15%? They need a player. And we're going to talk about Mel Kiper's comments in a second here. They need a player. They don't need a bench guy. With the 7th pick, you need a guy that's going to get out there on the field and make some plays, preferably on defense, preferably somebody that can be impactful right away. A bench warmer with the number 7 pick, if you don't trade down, I think is the worst of the worst options. The quarterback option this year is the worst option.
I mean, I think so for the Lions at least. Look, I think Brad Holmes coming out and saying what he said about a quarterback being a viable option at 7 really lets teams like Washington, lets a team like Carolina, lets teams who like the New England Patriots, lets teams know, like, hey, if you really want a quarterback and your guy's here at 7, you better move up and you better come get him because it's not off our big board. It's not. There is the possibility that we might do this. Now, like I said, do I think it's going to happen? No. I think what makes sense for this team, at least this season, is move back. Have somebody come up, trade with you, and move back. Possibly get another first-round pick next year, depending on what's going on with who's moving where, or go out and look, getting a player, getting a guy, a big, strong defensive tackle, or getting an edge rusher, somebody who can go really get to the quarterback and really mess up the quarterback, I think is going to be the position that you need that's going to pay dividends. If you can find that linebacker who's going to make a difference, go get him. You know what I'm saying? But I don't think you need to do that at 7. I think you can move back. And I think what you have is just, it's a lot of posturing by Brad Holmes, and it's basically letting other teams know, like, hey, we're not taking them off our big board. There is the possibility that we will go get this guy. I think you're right. They need a player. They need somebody who's going to make an impact. I don't necessarily think that guy's Kyle Pitts, and I don't necessarily think that guy is Devonta Smith, and I don't think that guy is Jamar Chase. I don't think it's any of those guys, because I think those guys are nice. Those guys are sizzle. I don't know if those guys are steak. You need some more steak. You need some meat. You need some guys to go out there and blow a guy up and make a play. I think you can get that later on in this draft. I think this draft is going to be, I think the top of it's going to be very QB heavy. And I don't know about you. Do any of these quarterbacks really blow you away?
No. Because
I think you can make an argument for all of them, but I think you can also make the argument against all of them. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. There's not one guy where you're like, oh, that's the franchise guy. Unless
right.
you made a play to move up to get Zach Wilson, you could be a gambler. But at this point in time, oh, hell no. Not this year. Or not in the first round. Maybe you find the diamond in the rough, and we'll start to dig into that in the next week or two here, but not in the first round. No. I think you got to go, and we'll talk about it because Mel Kiper had very interesting comments. What did you make of what he said? He said, look, I rank it in terms of what they need, as they need 2 linebackers, 2 wide receivers, and he said that at number 7, with how the league is going, you don't take Micah Parsons. It's too high. He said, you go Smith, Waddle, or Jamar Chase. And he said, you take a wide receiver at that spot, not the quarterback, and not Micah Parsons. I was a little surprised by that comment because of the fact that a lot of teams are not taking wide receivers that high. Lions have had a failed history of doing that. When Matt Millen, I think, selected 3 wide receivers high in 3 consecutive first-round picks, 3 consecutive years, it didn't really turn out well for him or the Lions. Do you agree with what NFL insider from ESPN, Mel Kiper, thinks?
Yeah, I mean, look, I
value.
I don't
baby.
know.
What about the value? What about the value?
Right, and that's kind of look when you're drafting at 7, it has to be all about value, right? When you're drafting in the top 10, you've got to maximize your value. And I was a little bit shocked when he said what he said about Micah Parsons not really being worth it at 7. And then you kind of see where not so much Mel Kiper, because I don't necessarily value Mel Kiper's drafts or his mock drafts all that much. I do value his assessment, though. I don't necessarily value his mock drafts. I don't know if that makes any sense, but I will take what he says and I will listen to what he says. But I will not look at his mock draft and be like, oh, see, there it is. It's right there. It's in black and white. I value other people. And when you look at what other people, where they have kind of Micah Parsons going, he tends to be a little bit later in the draft. And there's other linebackers that are ranked ahead of him. So look, when you hold the 7 spot, you've got to maximize that value as much as possible, which is why I think this year specifically, trading out of that 7 spot is probably critical to this organization. This organization getting things righted quicker. Look, this is a weird year. And normally when you're drafting in the top 10, you can find a guy. This is one of those years where you really wanted to be in the top 3, kind of like the Lions were last year, or you wanted to be outside the top 10. And unfortunately for the Lions, they're kind of in that middle area where it's okay. Well, what do we do here? Do you risk it and go after a skill player like a Pitts or Devonta Smith or a Jamar Chase if he's there, or do you try to address what's going to maybe make this team better in the long run, and do you risk it and maybe not get that value out of a linebacker like Micah Parsons? It's really weird where they're at. So it's trying to find and maximize that value and really put this team in a spot that they're going to get better, that they're going to do things the right way. Which is why if a team like Washington, if they value a guy like Trey Lance, they feel he's the next Patrick Mahomes, and they're willing to move up, and you're willing to move back, and you're willing to get another draft pick, another first-round draft pick possibly, because I believe in one of his mock drafts, that's what he has going on for next year. I mean, could you imagine having 3 first-round draft picks next year?
Oh.
Like, anything you want to do, you can do. And, I mean, you believe that they're going to be bad next year, right? Like, top 3 bad, top 5 bad at least, right?
Top 10 guaranteed. I think 5-6 wins would be probably where we're starting at with this.
Exactly.
So
look, when you're that bad, it doesn't take a whole lot to really move up to get to the guy that you really want to get to, especially when you've got all that extra draft collateral, like possibly having 3 first-round picks. You could pair some of those and move up and get a guy so somebody else will move back 1 or 2 spots. So look, I think maximizing that 7th overall draft pick is key to this organization really becoming a challenger, really becoming a contender much quicker. I mean, let me ask you this, would you build around Jared Goff? Is he a guy that you could see building this team around? Now look, Brad Holmes has a ton of interest in him because he was the main reason he got drafted in with the Rams. Is he a guy, though, that you could see setting your future and setting your organization, setting their path basically on his train tracks? Because I don't know if that's the guy. Look, the way I look at it, it's 2 years. Like, you get 2 years.
Exactly.
And then we're basically moving on.
Exactly. And what you're doing is you're building, but you're not building for Jared Goff. He knows it. He knows that the best case scenario for him is to play well so that he can get traded or potentially sign a big money deal. So it's win-win all the way around because of the fact that the Lions are going to build a healthy roster that can potentially be handed over to a young quarterback on his first deal, and that's kind of how things have been. But you got to find that quarterback that you trust, that can rally people, that can be the guy that can, fit the mold of what the collaborative team council really wants. And I think that's what's going to happen is that Jared Goff is going to be motivated to get his ass out of here. And that's the best thing is that he's going to play well. They're going to build. They're going to get him potentially Jared Cook, who got released. Potentially you got TJ Hawkinson. You got a couple wide receivers, and you got DeAndre Swift, who's probably going to be a real focal point of that offense. And you're going to get probably a couple more offensive weapons in the draft and in free agency. That's all you need. It's not rocket science. And I think that Jared Goff is going to want to ball out, and they're going to tailor that offense for what he can do well. A lot of intermediate throws, a lot of boring-ass shit, and a lot of screens to DeAndre Swift. And that's what you're going to do for the next couple years. And then when you get that flashy guy that can extend a play, you hand the team over to him, and Jared Goff hopefully gets you a first-round pick or something that is worthwhile in a draft that Brad Holmes finds to be appealing. All right, before we get out of here, lightning round. 3 to 4 important Detroit Lions topics that we got to get to. All right, first round of cuts. You probably believe Desmond, Trufant, and Justin Coleman probably not going to be here this year.
Oh, they gone.
They gone. Kenny Golladay, you think it's long-term or the franchise tag?
Neither. I'm not doing either. Like, if I'm Brad Holmes, I'm not doing neither one of those. Let him walk. Get your third round compensatory pick for him going someplace else. I'm not doing it. You're not in a position right now where you're going to win. So what's the point of locking him up and paying him big bucks when you need to really retool and you need some flexibility with this roster? So possibly next year you can really look at solidifying what you're doing. I'm just not doing it with him. Not doing it.
Your reaction if Russell Wilson ends up on the Bears?
Oh man, that would suck.
That would
that would really suck. Here's the thing, though. He wants to leave Seattle because he keeps getting hit. You're gonna go to the Bears? I mean, like, have you looked at what happens to their quarterbacks? Basically, they get hung out to dry too. So what the hell good would that do? Plus, you're playing in a place that's much colder. And look, I don't know. It's Chicago. Fuck Chicago.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's where it's at. Romeo Okwara on the roster, not on the roster. 2021.
Like, if you have to franchise tag a guy,
that's $17
million.
million. That's $17 million. That you don't get value for that.
You don't. You really don't. But he would be my guy if I had to. Between him and Kenny Golladay, he'd be my guy just because I think there's something there. But again, I'm looking at loading up on as much draft capital as I can. I'd let both those guys walk, and I'd get those compensatory draft picks, those third-round compensatory draft picks for those guys.
Favorite coaching hire that the Lions made?
Can I say Dan Campbell just because he's so damn interesting?
Yeah, no doubt. I like that. And
he's just interesting, man. Look, root for radio, and that's what we're doing here. He's just so damn interesting.
Deuce Staley's going to get some time in front of the microphone. He wants to groom him to be a head coach, and I think it's funny because in 1 year or two, this podcaster is going to say, "Hell, just put Deuce Staley in the job." He said that they openly said that. Hey, he's gonna be the next Dan Campbell. He's going to go from an assistant to a head coach, and he's going to give him time to talk in the media, let him do some stuff. So they're really high on Deuce Staley, and he's got some energy. He has some fun life to him, so that's good. It's a good sign.
This is what I'll tell you. If you are a guy who is big on leadership, right, and coming out of my last job, right, they certain places really emphasize leadership, and they did a really good job, I think, or different parts of the organization did a really good job trying to develop leaders and really promoting them and really giving them the tools to do what it is that they really wanted to do. I find Dan Campbell's mentality when it comes to leadership, I find it invigorating. I find it rejuvenating. I am interested in. Do I know if it'll work? No, I don't know. Do I think that there is a better chance of him failing and falling flat in his face? Yes, absolutely. Do I think the ride is going to be incredible to it, though? Fuck yeah. And I'm here for all of it. I love the fact that he wants to give a guy who says, I want to be a head coach. Give me every tool that I can have to become a head coach. And Dan Campbell's like, cool, bro. I'm right there with you. I'm going to do everything in my power to help make you the head coach that you want to be. And I find that fascinating. I find it exhilarating as a fan, and I find it really, really interesting to watch because Dan Campbell is a guy who has very limited coaching experience, but he's like, I'm going to help you get to that point. So I just think it's interesting. Look, man, it's so different that it might just work.
Okay, and one final thing, because it's the theme of the week, it's going to be the theme of the season. How much do Doc and Jock love Sheila Ford Hemp? I think she's great. I think she's awesome. I think of all the owners, she's the finest. I think that potentially she's the smartest. She's the wisest. She's the best leader. She's the best collaborator. I think that we should honor Sheila Ford Hemp every week by just telling the audience how much we love Sheila. Because of the fact that she invites us, she answered our question. I mean, hell, if she's smart, once Amen says, hey, John Macaroon, Detroit Sports Podcast, she should have just been like, huh? Can't hear you. Hello? You're cutting out. And meanwhile, I'm screaming over and over, what do you think about Stafford? Do you commit to him? Hello? Are you there? Hello? But Sheila answered my question. She basically lied to me, but was it after the season? No, it was right when she got hired is when I asked. So Stafford didn't drop the ball yet. But in the end, this podcast, I think, loves Sheila. We love some Sheila. It's the Detroit Sheila podcast. Really, the S was really a secret. You know, the SI, it's Sheila Illustrated. Everything that we can think of to shower the new owner with praise, to maybe get one interview, maybe to get one, extra credential instead of the one guy having to write 5 articles on a game day. Maybe you'll let us chill a little bit so we can get the second one. I'll say this too, which I thought was a funny thing. If you listen to another outlet, what they had said was when they got their second credential, they said the Lions were excited. And I said to myself, that's the media in 2021. If the Lions are ever excited about getting anything from me, then I will quit, because my job is simple. It's to ask questions. It's to probe. It's to annoy. It's to not be the 8th PR wing of the department. And that's the blessing of the opportunity here, is that I don't want the Lions love. I don't need the Lions love. Mm-hmm. And the opportunity to do that, I don't want that. I don't want, I will do it.
The moment that organization
loves
is excited to give you something,
we're in trouble.
Then you're doing something wrong.
Very wrong. Very wrong. And to air it and to say it is quite interesting in the state of media in 2021. But we do love Sheila, truly, because I think she brings like the je ne sais quoi, some factor that I think is appealing to you and I. It might be the money, but I think it's more the intelligence and her ability to gather strong, powerful men in a room and just tell them, you all better come up with a unified decision when I come back here in the next 20 minutes, or there's going to be a problem. And
she's like a mom when the kids are arguing over who's going to get what toy to play with. Look, you two figure it out, and I'll be back.
Exactly, figure it out, or else. And I think that Sheila deserves the love from the Detroit Sheila podcast. And she's the new owner, because she must have some kind of spell over these two, because they keep saying her name repeatedly. And now I'm saying it. I think strong, powerful men.
I mean, I think in this 5-minute segment, you said it 47 times.
Yeah, but I think strong. She has the allure. Something about Sheila draws strong, powerful men to keep saying her name. Something about it. You love Sheila.
I like how you just put yourself over as strong and powerful.
Make sure you follow Adam on Twitter at AdamRSTROZ. Follow the network at Detroit Podcast. We appreciate you guys listening. You guys have created us. You've empowered us, and we do it for you. We love the response, and we love everybody engaging with the process, even those that call Vito Joe Pesci, which is insulting. And
who did that?
Go on our Twitter page, scroll through today. We got a lot of commenters that are sarcastic, and they saw one of the videos with me and Vito. In every SI article, there's a video of me and Vito, just 2 minutes, just talking about the Lions. And they said today, after they reviewed it, they said, not bad video, Pesci and Macaroon. And they spelled my name wrong. And they said, da. So I posted it, and I said, that's funny. And I said, but damn it, you guys keep us humble, but there's no C in my name, damn it. Spell it right. It's in the video. It's in every article. Spell it right, man. If you're going to keep us humble and call us out, call us short, call us whatever you want, at least spell my name right. At this point, I've only written 2,000 articles and 500 podcasts. You could at least spell my name right. But you know what? That might be for some too much to ask, but that's fine. We love it. We'll bring it up. That's why I started the Detroit Sports Podcast, was to enable anybody with a computer, with a phone, to speak their mind. We will read it. And it's funny, and it's engaging, and I think we're one of the premier sports podcast platforms in the Metro Detroit area. And thank you guys for letting us do what we do. We look forward to it, because we're getting ever so close to 400.